I'm pretty good. Long day today?
Yes, definitely a double shift today. But here we are. How was your day?
Not bad, man. It was honestly pretty relaxing. Today was a kind of a rest day for me. What do you do for a living?
So right now, for my night shifts, I deliver sushi for a Japanese restaurant,
Nice.
and then during the morning, I am the lead of a purchasing department in a small business out in somewhere in Port Washington. So
It's so crazy because right now the average person has like 2 to 3 jobs right now. It's ridiculous.
yes, it is
I've
ridiculous.
been thinking about this a lot, like how like the cost of living is so ridiculous now, and like one job just won't do it anymore.
It doesn't cut it. It doesn't cut it. And a lot of people that I know that are just working one job and they're doing living check by check or complaining about prices. I'm like, man, the only way to get out of it is to work harder. You got to get a second job. You got to put in more hours. That's the only way for right now, for the average person to just move along in life right now. It's unfortunate, but that's just the cards that we're dealt with. So we're so happen to be born at this time.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, I think a lot about that too, like, because I'm 35 years old. I don't know how old you are, but I think a lot about like, when was the perfect year to be born? I do think that
Yeah.
I was born at a good time because there are also advantages, technology and this and that. So th there are pros and cons. But yeah, I mean. For example, I'm a realtor and I'm also an Uber driver. So, I
Okay.
get jobs myself too. So it's ridiculous. So what are your
You're definitely a hustler for sure.
yeah, I'm trying, man. And this I just do for fun and for therapeutic reasons. So Dan, what is your long-term goal? What is is your goal to stay where you are? What's your goal career-wise?
The thing is, I don't think so much about my career in terms of my long-term goals. When I think about my long-term goals, I think about how many people I'm going to be able to impact.
Hmm.
So it's like, what kind of communities would I be able to impact? What kind of communities would I be able to grow and develop? Because so yeah, my goals really relate to that. I don't really care about the vehicle. I care about more of what the outcome can be. So I'm always looking to see which vehicle best matches that goal in mind, which is to basically help as many people as I can. And in many different factions. My biggest thing is that it has to do with kids and basically just the new generations. I feel like they're not being taught well enough, and they're not taught the proper things to set themselves up for life. Because I know I wasn't. I had to figure out a lot of things. I'm sure you did yourself. Had to figure out a lot of things and try to understand this, understand money, understand how to take care of yourself, understand manners, understand da 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 da, et cetera. The list goes on and on. And I feel like if society was to have that be more of the main agenda, it would transform so many things. So that's my I know I had a long-winded explanation for my long-term goals in terms of career and stuff. But for me, it doesn't really matter about the vehicle. It matters more about the outcome. So I don't have anything per mind. Um, just anything that gets the job done, really.
No, it's funny you apologize because I actually prefer long answers. Like I feel like I get more information when people give long answers. So I actually prefer long answers. So
Great.
it sounds to me like your goal is to help as many people as possible. Is getting rich on your list of priorities?
I'll say yes, it is on my list of priorities because of how large my goals are. It's going to need definitely a lot of capital to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But I think is if I if it doesn't need if I don't need to be rich, then I don't it's not necessary. What I mean by that is, let me actually explain more than that. Is if I have the right connections and those connections match if I was just individually rich, then I'll go with the connections over me being individually rich. Because if they could connect me to the right doors, if they could, and if they already have doors open that I could utilize, then I don't necessarily need to be rich. I just need to utilize them. So either or, yes, I would like obviously to have more than enough money to take care of my family, take care of any expenses. But if my people close to me could live fine, don't have to worry about bills, don't need to worry about food, none of that, that's more than enough for me. Anything above that, that's just extra cheddar. And I will actually utilize that for the goals that I want. So again, another long-winded answer, but technically, so yes, rich would be part of it.
Well, it does seem to me that rich people have much more capability to help others. You know, like if you're a billionaire, you can change way more lives than if you're a regular Joe. Am I crazy? Am I right?
No, no, you're definitely right. Yes. So you're definitely right. Yeah. So to that point, I agree that definitely having the money will make it a lot easier, be a lot more beneficial. And it definitely is part of the plans. But I also have on the back burner, if I could accomplish the same thing just with social connections, then I would. So that's why I kind of was like pivoting on the answer. But 90, yes, being rich is part of the goal.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem to me that, that they just have way more potential, like it's even if you did have the connections, like isn't it safe to say that you could change way more lives if you're a multimillionaire or a billionaire, and this is a whole different topic, but
Sure.
I do want to talk about it because
Okay.
right now a lot of people are complaining about billionaires, about how greedy they are, how
Hmm.
capitalistic they are. How do you feel? Do you feel that billionaires are morally obligated to give their money away? Do you feel that they're evil? Do you feel they're capitalistic? How do you feel about that whole situation?
That's a great question and actually a great topic as well. I think a lot of people don't look at it in the right way. Well, in my opinion, I feel they're not obligated to give out their money. They earn their own money. As the same way you earn, like anyone is earning a 80K a year income, 100. Basically, I will have the same assumption as you. Why aren't you giving out to charity? Why aren't you putting out? Let's just say they have more time than money, more money than time, etc. Why aren't you putting more of your time to helping other people? You're not obligated to do so. So why is it equal to them just because they have more than you? That is my mindset on that. And are billionaires evil? I One thing I always say is we don't really know what they're thinking, and nor do we really know who they are. But I don't find them evil. Maybe some of them got corrupted by it because anyone with power could easily get corrupted. Imagine being a billionaire. People don't understand what it actually means to have all that money. So they can, if they were to be in that same position, they'll probably act exactly like them, but they just don't understand the connection between the two. But in my opinion, I don't think they're evil because if they got there, let's just say they got there by their own, you know, work ethic and etc., then they earned it. They shouldn't need to do anything outside of what they want with it. So if they're not a person that does anything with charity, that's just not them. But if you are, then you should put in the work ethic to become a billionaire yourself and do what they can. That's my mindset on that. What do you think?
Well, if I was a billionaire, I don't see how I would be able to sleep at night knowing that there were so many children starving, knowing so many people were starving to death. Like I don't know, like I feel like a lot of it is just ego. And the thing is, like I wouldn't
Mhm.
like even right now, right? Like if I had the money to buy a Lambo, I wouldn't feel so right about that because I feel like it's just ego. And the thing about me is I don't want to just do things out of pure ego. You know what I'm saying? Like I
Yeah.
feel like being a billion, once you're at that point, holding on to that money is just about ego.
Mhm.
Would you agree with that?
Holding on. Yes, I definitely agree, especially the point of having a Lamborghini. For
Mhm.
me, I feel the same way. Like these things only do so much for me. It's like it will only be to impress other people. And at that point, what's the point? Like people's impressions on me only go so far. The most important thing is, am I going to sleep at night to what you're saying? So I agree in terms of I will feel the same way as you, 100%.
So kind of a personal question, but how do you sleep at night nowadays?
I like your questions. You have good questions for sure.
I try.
How, how do I sleep at night? I'll say I sleep pretty well. Uh, Sometimes I do stay up at night just for a bit, but I always run through a lot of thoughts right before I go to bed.
Yeah.
But most of those thoughts just consist of, what are my plans for the next day? How can I do better this week? How can I do better for this month? I can catapult myself for the next month. How can I help the people close to me? How can I make sure they're set up so that if I'm not around, they have an automation? How it how can I automize my life so I wake up and most things I don't need to think about instead of the most important things I could like put most of my concentration on that. So, but that goes like in the midst of like 10, 15 minutes, I'm like,
Racing.
and then I'm out. Then I sleep. So I stay up for a bit, not too long, but some nights I do stay up a bit.
So while you were talking, I wrote down two words, which is solution based. You sound to me like a very, very solution based thinker. Like you're, how do I fix this problem? How do I fix this problem? How do I resolve this? Like you sound very solution based to me.
That's, yeah, I guess that's the easy way to describe the way I think. I don't look at problems in a way that is overwhelming. I look at problems as it's just a way of life, and we are given the opportunity to solve it. So I always say this to the people closest to me. Like they always, they complain about their problems. They can, oh, woe is me. Why is this happening to me?
Yep.
And I always think of it as you are given your problems because you have the capabilities to solve it. You have Christian, you have your own problems. I have my own problems, and it's so that I can grow as an individual. That's how I look at it. So that technically means I have the capabilities to create a solution for it. And at the same time, which is what I think is the most important thing, I don't want this problem. Nobody else is going to fix my problem. So I might as well just come up with a damn solution just so I can get rid of it. I know there's going to be another problem after that, but it's like a plate of food. If you keep piling it up, it's going to be too much to eat. It's you don't know where to pick from. Like it's just too much. So that's just my mindset. And I always say that I want to clear the plate. 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 Because I know there's going to be more food coming. It's like a buffet of problems, but my stomach is like the solution.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're
So
right.
yeah, it sounds to me like you're a very analytical and logical person. It does beg the question though, because it sounds to me like you believe that we have the control and the power to fix all of our problems. And then I think about, starving children and like people in third world countries, and I think like, how much control do they have? Like so basically my question is, uh,
Okay.
do you believe that we are 100% of in control of our lives, or do you think that where it's like 50-50, some of it's our control, some of it's not?
I feel that we are in control in the way we guide our lives, not really the things that happen or the consequences or the results of the actions that we take. So I'm not sure if that even answers your question, but the way that I'm looking at it now after your explanation of like those underprivileged people around the world, yeah, it is a lot tougher to them yeah, it's a lot tougher for them to even get out of their situation. But I guess they could guide themselves in the best way possible. But if you live with the woe is me mentality, there's no way you're going to be able to even guide the ship. You're just going to stay at where you're at no matter what. So I'll say more 50-50 then. Yeah, 50% is your control and 50% is everything around you. But being able to take 100% control of the 50% is vital, and it could change 100% of your life, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I do. I agree with the 50-50 answer because, like, let's use another example. Like, let's just say, because sometimes every now and then someone will go to jail and they'll be innocent. I think about this sometimes too. As I think as men, there's always that
It's one of my
possibility.
biggest fears, actually.
Yeah,
Continue on.
like because let's be straightforward, as men, like anything can happen,
Yeah.
and there are some people who are in jail for a very, very long time, and they didn't do anything. And then I'll think in my head like, is this really their fault? Is their depression their fault? It's sort of a pet peeve of mine when people say, we are 100% in control over our lives, because I don't really fully buy that. Like how is a man I mean, it's usually men who was in jail for 20 years for something he
Mhm.
didn't do. How is that his fault? You know?
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. I rarely hear anyone say to me, at least, that we're 100% in control of our lives. I hear the opposite, that they're 0% in control of their lives. They can't do anything about things. So I do find that interesting in itself. But, to your point, there's a lot of unfortunate things that happen in this world that are outside of control. There's people that are already in power. There's family that's already in power years before we were even born or thought of. And we can only do so much about. And it just it's just the guiding part. I'm gonna go back to that, is trying your best to guide yourself to one, be the best person you can and guide yourself to the most ideal life that you thought of. And there's certain people that don't have the imagination to think of the future or to think of a possible future. There's people that don't understand themselves, which I think is a missing key, which is very important. Because once you understand yourself, you understand what you're capable of, and you could see how far you can go. Which, if most, this is like most average people, let's say in the West, right? If you could, how lucky we are, how blessed we are, see how far we could go, like, and you believe in it, you could really get there. Obviously, putting in the work and so forth. But again, yeah, it is crazy how unfortunate things are to those people that are in jail for many years. But it's so funny. So two people, one, they both get imprisoned for something they're both innocent for. One person gets depressed, maybe, does something unfortunate, but the other person makes himself out to be something. He helps other people in the prison. He even writes a book in prison. He learns in prison, and ends up getting out early for some apparent reason. He ends up, so it's like it's interesting. Yeah, so there's a lot of things outside of your control, but that's is the simple thing is the best what you can make out of it, if that makes sense.
Right. So what I'm hearing is that even when we're in crappy situations, we still have some control, to a certain extent. We can meditate. Like if I was in jail for 20 years, I'd probably do a lot of meditation, and I really wonder, like I would try to do some cognitive reframing and try to just make myself as happy as possible. Like maybe
Yeah.
I'll tell myself, at least I'm healthy, at least I'm getting free food. And
Hmm.
like sometimes I'll be thinking like, man, like, you know, life out here is so hard. And in jail, they're getting free food, they're getting free shelter.
Yeah,
I'm not saying I wanted to go to jail, but sometimes I'll think
I
about
know.
like basically how like some of them have the mentality of, oh, it's easier in here. We're getting
Yeah.
everything served for free. It's easier in here.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you hear it, but I hear when they leave jail, they just go back because of how easy it was there compared to living the life out here. Because it's so much harder to start from scratch out here compared to in jail. You're basically like living your like not living your life, but you to your point, everything what you just said. I don't know how
Everything's
to put
being
that in.
handed to you. Like
Everything is being
literally
handed to you.
your food is being handed to you.
Yeah,
Out here, nobody's giving you free food unless you wait online somewhere, but out in jail, everything's being handed to you. So it's interesting, like the way it just goes to show how hard life is, isn't it?
it is, and that's a good point. And it's so funny, like to even us being in the West or being in the United, or me being in the United States of America, it's like it's great here, in my opinion, but it's still hard. And I can't even imagine the third world countries. I can't imagine the people that are born in such tough families with people that are abusing them mentally or physically. Like those things. When I consider those things, it makes me want to go harder
Yeah.
because of how good I have it and the benefits that I could utilize compared to them. So yeah, but it's still, yes, it still is hard out here. Um, but we got to do what we got to do.
So
Because
I'm
if
gonna
not, we're just gonna be desperate. Oh, go on.
right. So I'm gonna ask you a philosophical question. Why is life so hard?
I feel life is hard. Hmm. I think for humans, we're meant to experience all type of emotions.
Yeah.
Hence the reason why we are given emotions.
Hmm.
So I feel life being hard gives us the opportunity to do that. Because when things are so hard, you get to experience the strong emotions, the negative emotions. I'm gonna call it the negative emotions, the being angry, the being sad, depressed. But obviously, if you didn't have those emotions, you wouldn't be able to appreciate, being joyful, being calm, being peaceful. So I feel like life is hard so that you can experience the negatives so that you can actually enjoy the positives. So that's my quick explanation on that question.
No, that's a good answer. There's this quote, very, very old. Have you ever heard? I think it was in Many Men by 50 Cent, where he said, life, sunny days wouldn't be special if it weren't for rain. Joy wouldn't feel so good if it weren't for pain. Do you remember that line?
Now I do. That's a good line.
Yeah, and I think about that line because it's so philosophical and deep, and like
So.
it is true. Like if we never ever ever had rainy days, how meaningful would sunny days be?
Hmm. Yeah,
No?
like today was a sunny day. Like it was a sunny day, and it felt so amazing. I'm like, wow, especially for a snowstorm that we had recently.
Mhm.
Today was really nice. So to that point, yes, great. It's
Where
a
are you,
great
by the
line.
way?
I live in Long Island, New
Oh,
York.
I'm in Flora Park.
Oh, okay. So you're dealing with the same thing then.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where you were, but yeah, so it is interesting, because I think that a lot of people, especially younger people, have this mentality of, life will be much better when, or, I can't wait until. And, I'm not saying that life can't improve, but
Okay.
it's also important to understand, for all of us to understand, that we will never ever reach a point of zero suffering. Like
Mm.
even though life may get easier,
Hmm.
we will always have some extent of pain and some extent of suffering. Even like 10 years ago, my grandfather was crying at his wife at my grandma's funeral. He was already 83. And I was
Yeah.
thinking in my head, like, man, like this just goes to show no matter how old we get, there will always be suffering, won't there?
That's an interesting insight for that moment, for sure. That's good. I definitely believe that. And to your point that things you you said things will never get easier.
Well, no, I do think that things can get easier. But I'm saying that we will never reach a point of zero suffering.
Zero suffering, yes. I always say that we can get stronger to balance it out.
Hmm.
And I'm sure you agree with that too. But I definitely agree. So again, going back to my plate analogy, is like I know another thing is going to come, and I want to prepare myself mentally. I want to prepare myself physically in every fashion that I can to make sure that when the suffering comes, I have things in place that could better counter it. So I don't get hit so hard. So I could deal with the blow better, or I could get back faster, however one would like to put it. So I definitely agree with that. And I think to your point, it's a misconception. Most people don't understand that. That is, there's never a one day. Just even if you win the lottery, you're gonna have issues. You need to get a lawyer. You need to make sure the tax thing, this and that. And after you get the money, what if you buy that? Then you're wrong with the IRS, and then that. Like, there's so many more things. Like, then old friend's gonna come at you, and then your mom. Like, it's never ending. And I do find it beautiful for the fact that it creates a nice story. Everyone else has their own problems, and some stories are pretty tough to hear, but the people that say that make it out and become better through it, it's a beautiful story. Obviously, there's tragic stories, but it is all a story. And I feel like I have a random thing. It's like a tangent.
Hmm.
I talked to my friend about this, and you know how they say when you're dying, your life flashes before your eyes, right?
Yep. Yep.
I said, that's it's interesting. I feel like our life, we're meant to create a movie for us for our final moments. Because in those, when the life flashes before your eyes, is all the important moments in your life that happen, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful.
Mhm.
So then technically, we should be living as much of an extravagant life as we can. So for those last few seconds before death, we get to see a reel of all those moments. It was a tangent, but it was just a thought that I had. I thought it was interesting to mention for
Yeah,
what we
well,
talked.
it kind of reminds me of the saying or the philosophy that, we should appreciate the bad, like because that's what it sounds like to me. Like it sounds to me like you've gained some appreciation for the bad, for the painful moments. Does that sound right?
Definitely.
Yeah, and how do you feel about, when people say things like life should be easy or life, because a lot of people have that mentality, life should be easy. It shouldn't be this difficult. Life should be super easy. How would you respond to those people?
I would just ask, where'd you get that information from? Why'd you come? Yeah, like why'd you come up with that? Like, yeah, simply, where'd you get the information from? Why do you think life should be easy? When was it ever easy to anyone, for any living creature on planet Earth? When was it ever easy, and why should it start being now? Just because we got more technology?
Mhm.
Like, technology helped us so much, and you're still complaining.
Mhm.
You would have not survived 200 years ago. You would have been crying every day. So I don't get that question, that statement that life should be easy. I think is an excuse, is an opt out to actually put in the work to be better, or to better handle situations. Not even be better, better handle situations. I think it's just an excuse, in my opinion. What do you think?
Well, it's interesting, and back to what you were saying about 200 years ago. So let's go even further back, right? So for hundreds of years, there were cavemen. There were cavemen who were barely surviving. Their average life expectancy was like 30 to 40. They were barely surviving, freezing in the cold. They had to kill animals for food. And it's so interesting because we completely surpassed that phase, right? Like putting food in our mouth and just staying alive is relatively easy for the average person, Like most of us can, the average expectancy now is like 80, right? So the
Hmm.
vast majority of us find putting food in our mouths and eating and just staying alive as simple. And what's interesting is that we're still complaining, we're still
Yeah.
depressed, we're still anxious, even though we've completely passed that trying to survive phase, we're still
Hmm.
complaining, even though putting food in our mouth is so easy. So this is kind of what I was trying to ask before. Like, if we have reached this point in it's 2025, we reached this point where life is so much easier than it used to be. Why is mental health lower than ever? Why is depression so high? Why is anxiety so high? Even though we've reached this incredible point where it's easy to survive.
I thought about that recently too. I think it's because we don't have enough problems.
That's
It's
interesting. That's interesting.
Is because when you don't have time to be like to be so depressed by anything when you're just trying to figure out how to get food in your mouth. You're on a go to get food in your mouth.
Uh,
And I think it's because humans are problem solving machines. So when we don't have to figure out about it's so easy to do nothing nowadays.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're always trying to figure out something. So we distract ourselves with take social media or TV, thinking we're accomplishing something, but in reality, you're not accomplishing anything.
Right.
Whenever I see anyone that is like or sad or whatever, I'm like, you don't have enough problems. That's the thing. I'm extreme on that. I know, but obviously, some people actually do deal with certain things. So I'm like joking. But yeah, that's my thought process on it. Like, we live in such good times, so what else would it be? We're problem solving individuals, and everything is so easy now. So that's my opinion. Stefan, what do you?
I think it comes down to the design of the human brain. Like there was this philosopher, I forget who it was. I should actually look it up after this, but he said
Okay,
something like, even if life were super easy and we just had intercourse and ate cake all day, the human brain would find a problem. It would find a problem. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the human brain hates boredom, and pain and suffering is actually a great solution to boredom, especially once we have the suffering resolved. So I think a lot of it also has to do with the human, just the way that the human brain is, the way that it hates boredom and the way
yeah,
that it often just finds problems on its own. Um, Back to your point, it also reminded me of another 50 Cent quote. And it's interesting because I don't even like listen to the guy that much, but for
yeah,
some reason, I guess I'm starting to realize how much wisdom he has. So he said it in a reel, depression is a privilege. And he said something like, growing up, like we didn't have the time to be depressed because we were so busy trying to survive. We didn't have
yeah,
the time to be depressed. So that
yeah.
kind of reminds me of that quote, depression is a privilege. Isn't that true to a certain extent?
Yeah, yeah. He is definitely a wise guy. It's I like that. Depression is. I'm going to use that. I'm stealing that. Depression is a privilege. That's great. But yeah, no, I definitely agree on that. Like, it's just what if you're in a situation where, again, some people they just can't handle it. I'm just thinking on the average then. You're in a situation, you have a family, and this as a man, you have a family to take care of. You just lost your job. You're really sad about the way you lost your job. You got to take care of it. You're just gonna wallow at home crying. How is that gonna fix anything? No, you're gonna most likely get it to gear, get to the do something else to figure out that situation. And depression never got a hold of you. But again, there's certain people that yes, it still will get a hold of them and they go down an unfortunate route. But I feel like for the average person in that situation, and if they obviously care about their family, they will make it out. They would do something about it. So
Right.
that's
You
depression
you
is a
you you
privilege.
you have you love that line, huh?
I do. I love it.
Well, it's a very interesting, there's a lot to say about that line because at the same
Yes.
time, like if someone came to me and said I'm depressed, I probably wouldn't respond with depression is a privilege, I would try to figure
Yeah,
out what's going on. So, there also needs to
reasonably.
be some validating when we talk to people who are down. So I do want to talk about, you know, you mentioned the word wallow, and I've been thinking a lot about like wallowing and processing emotions lately because I noticed that you're a very, very solution-based thinker. You're very, what is the solution? What is the solution? What is the solution? And I also noticed that a lot of people who are very, very solution-based, a lot of them don't take the time to analyze their internal emotions and their
Mhm.
processing emotions, maybe like their depression, their anxiety. Like a lot of people are very focused on external solutions as opposed to internal solutions. So I'm also wondering, like, how much do you analyze your own internal emotions and come up with internal solutions as opposed to just external solutions?
Great observation. And again, great question. It's funny. I'm a very emotional guy.
Mhm.
So if I don't put in time to analyze myself and analyze what my emotions are trying to tell me and trying to speak to and what they're trying, yeah, basically what they're trying to tell me, then I won't be able to think about solutions. My brain would be too much in frenzy that I can't even properly think of a solution. So I try to put in some time to sit down with myself. What I love to do is personally writing, asking myself questions and answering them. I think there's a name for it, but I just can't recall right now.
So
So
you
it's
write
like,
it down on a paper?
yeah, I write it down on paper. So I'll basically just therapist myself.
Interesting.
I write down a question and then based on how am I feeling? Oh, why am I feeling this way? I think it's because of this, and this. I'm like, oh, well, does this, okay, I think it's because this and this. Why is it that? Is it more negative, more positive? When did it start? I'll ask myself that question. Then I'll keep going down until a I come to an answer where I feel okay with. Nothing that it solves anything, but something that just reassures me that what I'm feeling is okay, or and it's not the end of the world, and it doesn't also need to change my world. It doesn't need to take me away from anything. So I was like, okay, I understand. And then I try to think of more practical things to better alleviate that feeling. Oh, maybe I have to have the hard conversation with somebody. Maybe, I feel bad because, I didn't work out and I was feeling inadequate today. I'm like, just because I missed one day of working out doesn't mean I'm inadequate. So it's like, I do have to run through those things. And actually tomorrow, I like to go to a, it's called Flowtopia. I forgot where it is, but I go there. I just don't forget what town it is. I put in my GPS and just go there. Basically, it's a I go in a sensory deprivation tank.
Mm.
I'm not sure if you ever heard of that,
I've
but
heard of it. I don't know too much about it. I've heard of it.
yeah. So basically, you go in go in shallow water. It has salt in there, so then you stay afloat the whole time. And sensory deprivation is a dark room. You put earplugs in. And since you're floating on water, on salt water, you barely feel your body. So basically, and everything's, there's a luminescent light there. I like to turn it off because you feel like you're floating in space, just your brain.
Mhm.
So it's basically deep meditation in my mind. So I go in there to unwind. And the biggest thing is I tell people, I feel, in my opinion, meditation is more about your body than your mind. Because I heard somewhere that we keep emotions in our body. And there was one time I was meditating, and instead of trying to clear my mind, I was like, you know what? Let me try to clear my body, clear the sensations, the tightness in certain areas, and this and that. And after I did that, then my mind started to clear. So I'm
Mhm.
like, hmm,
Yeah.
it's more about the body than the mind. So, but to my point is when I go in there, I lay out, I float, and everything kind of just flush out. I brought many people there. I would definitely recommend it. It's called Flowtopia. And they all come out feeling refreshed. Like, and the biggest thing is too, it's a like dopamine detox. You're in there. It's you could do a 60-minute interval or a 90-minute interval. I do now 90 minutes because I'm more, I'm like a veteran there. And, but the thing is, when new people, when they first go there, 15 minutes in, you're like, where's my phone? Like, I feel uncomfortable. I got to get out, like, da 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 da. And then everything just drops and you feel at ease and you start to look at your problems more clearly. And you're like, oh, it's not as big of a deal as I was making it. So, going back to the main question, yes, I do put in time to analyze my emotions because I know it's a very important thing. So I try to look at all aspects of myself and make sure I don't burn out
Hmm.
mentally, physically, and spiritually.
Yeah,
So,
it's interesting because I always find conversations about the mind and the body being connected very interesting. There is obviously a strong connection between the body and the mind. That's why a lot of people say it's so important to stay in shape because it affects you mentally. And there's some
mhm.
people who disagree with that. That's a whole different political discussion,
Yeah,
and we don't have to go that route. But it sounds to me like, when you go to Flowtopia, there's somewhat of a change of perspective. Because I noticed you said something along the lines of, "Oh, I realized that it's not that big of a problem." So it sounds to me like there's a perspective change that
mhm.
goes on in your mind. So help us understand like why, how does that process work? How does that perspective change work?
Okay. So, good question. Yeah. So when I'm in there, basically, I realize that throughout my day, there's a lot of buzzing in my brain because and especially nowadays, we collect so much information like all the time now. Obviously, our phone, the phone
Yeah.
call, all these things. There's a
Mhm.
lot of information.
Mhm.
So when I'm in there, throughout my life, I'm trying to figure out a solution, right, for my problem. There's a lot of buzzing of an opinion or another opinion or something I saw online, and this could be. I'm like, so it's not the easiest to find a solution. We still get it done, but when I'm in there and when everything clicks all the buzzing goes away.
Mhm.
And now it's just me in the problem or me in the situation that I'm looking at.
Mhm.
And it feels a lot easier to look at it without all the extra noise on the side. So I guess it basically just makes a funnel or not a funnel. Yeah, is it not a funnel?
A tunnel.
Yeah, a tunnel. Yeah, funnel. Yeah, so basically like a tunnel, just me in it. That's it. Not no extra noise, no opinion that I heard, no extra information. And then my anxiety towards it calms down. Or the anxiety towards the situation or like the is like that's what
No,
so it goes
that's
away.
really interesting because it sounds to me like that the fact that the fact that there's less information. So when you really think about it, right, the equation is less information equals more peace to a certain extent, right? Because you found peace, you're very peaceful there with less information. So it really begs the question, like, are we receiving too much information?
I definitely think we do. I definitely think a lot, especially the younger generation, the iPad kids, like I do think they're getting too much, like a lot of information at once, and it's paralyzing. Too much information is paralyzing, and I'm sure you can agree with that. Like, let's just say you're trying to solve one situation, or you're just trying to create something, and there's a million different ways to make it. You're like, you're trying to start a YouTube video. They say, do this thumbnail, do this. You just don't know what to do. But imagine you had no information, and all you had to do was just try. You'll figure it out a lot quicker than trying to absorb all the information in the first place. So I'm just to talk about like the modern day. I think it's phenomenal that all the information that is out there, all the like your page, all the things that you're providing for everybody, I think is phenomenal. But it is like if all you do is just like soaking in that energy all the time instead of like trying to shuffle through it and kind of gain your own perspective through it, then yeah, I think it's a bit too much. So to
Yeah.
your point, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because it sounds to me like, that when you were there, you were detached from the world, and that there were no distractions, and it goes to show that maybe there's just peace to be found in just the quiet. It also makes me wonder, like, okay, if I do, what what information should we should we uh should we receive less of? So for example, like
Mm.
I watch a lot of educational and psychological videos. Like, is that okay? One thing I notice is the more I pay attention to politics, the more
Mhm.
stressed I am. So, I think that, what basically the question is like, where should what information should we cut out or decrease?
Mhm.
That is basically the question.
that is a good question. I think it just I would think it's subjective,
Uh-huh.
to each
Good
their
answer.
own person.
Hmm.
I really do think that. Because everyone has different, I always say everyone has different intellects. When people say, oh, they're dumb, they're dumb, they're dumb, I'm like, I'm sure they could do something that you have no idea how the hell to do.
Right.
So
Right.
they have an intellect that you don't have.
Right.
So I never put anyone down if they don't understand, if they don't, I don't think they don't understand something. And it's because I know there's something that I have they don't understand and vice versa. But to your point about the information thing, yeah, I think it is subjective. Uh, but one thing that if I was to, if a younger person asked me that question, I would say to them, you should really focus on gaining information that's relative to your goal. Anything outside of that is just noise.
Yep.
I don't care how pretty it looks,
Yep.
and it could look pretty.
Yep.
Like it's just noise because your goal, you created that goal for a reason. That means how they say about the planes, like the Warner Brothers, like no one thought about it, but they imagined it before they created it. So hence to all your goals and visions, you imagine it for a reason because you're capable of obtaining it, in my opinion. So to that point, any information that's taking you away from that, that's noise. So first is subjective, but then if someone was to ask me that, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, a lot of the noise is comes from looking at things that we want but will never have, or even that, we won't have for a really, really long time. Like if you're a
Mm,
teenager who's constantly looking at Lambos and Rolls Royces and mansions, yeah, it can be used for inspiration, but it also can produce envy, and it can produce you feeling you don't have anything, and a lot of it is
that's a good point.
a lot of it comes down to like comparing. We talk about this all the time. When social media started, when Instagram and Facebook started, there was a very high rise in depression, especially in teenage girls, because a lot of them they would compare their bodies to other beautiful models,
Yeah.
and they would make them feel really
And
inferior by comparison.
yeah, that is really sad, actually. I actually didn't know that the female population was getting hurt by it a lot. I know I would have thought it was more boys, but it's also a fair thing too. And that's
Yeah,
pretty
and
sad.
I watched a psychiatrist named Dr. K, and according to him, and according to monks, because he trained to be a monk,
Okay.
they said that that comparing is ego. So when we compare ourselves to other people, that's ego. And
Mhm.
a lot of people say that comparison is the thief of joy, and there's a lot of truth in that. But I was talking to a therapist the other day. He's my friend's boss, and he was saying, I noticed that comparing can also lead to inspiration, which I also noticed too. So there is, comparing can be good. It can be used for inspiration. But if I had to fill in the blank, and I've said this in a previous podcast, but I'm going to say it again. If I had to fill in the blank with blank is the thief of joy, it would be ego is the thief of joy. What do you think about that?
I'm not a big fan of ego,
Mhm.
so I definitely would be more on your side of that. I do also think ego does help a lot of people
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
closer to
Mhm.
enjoyment in their life, even like if it's just the fire for their moment. Their ego
Right.
is the
Right.
fire that propels them,
Motivation.
motivation. But the thing is, let's just say when it has to do with strictly ego, yeah, I think like if someone's just completely egotistical, like they're just a monster with their ego, then yeah, I definitely think it takes away all their joy because they're doing everything for everybody else, not for themselves. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I think maybe I should have added the words a lack of control of ego is the thief of joy, or maybe like uncontrolled ego is the thief of joy, because I think that controlled ego is the opposite. I think that
Yes.
controlled ego leads to happiness. So maybe I should add the word uncontrolled ego is the thief of joy.
Yeah, I honestly, yeah, I think that's perfect. That's perfectly said. Yes, uncontrolled ego is the thief of joy. I can wholeheartedly agree with that. Then, 100%.
because it's different when you're controlled. There was a thought lingering in my head about the I what do you call it when you the flowtopia?
Sensory deprivation
Right.
tech.
Sorry to go back to it, but there was a thought
Are you
lingering in
fine?
my head. So you said that in that moment you felt at peace. And
Hmm.
here's another theory that was lingering in my head. The reason why you are at peace is because in that moment you didn't want anything. You didn't want millions of dollars. You didn't want a woman. You didn't want the job. You didn't want anything in that moment. And it just goes to show that, maybe there's a lot of peace in just not wanting.
No, yes, yes. I think about this and talk about this with a few people that are close to me. In reality, so let's just say for my life, the only reason climbing up the ladder of my life, it's not because I have to. I choose to take the responsibility too, because there's people in my family I want to take care of. There's other people I want to take care of, and there's a certain ladder I need to climb to make sure we're all safe and peaceful. But let's just say everyone else around me just, unfortunately, just or never existed. I'm just gonna use that word. Like, and it was just me. I'll be fine living in the woods, just feeding, living off the land, doing nothing, not acquiring anything, because to your point, in those moments, like what is luxury? Like what is all these items? Like what do they really do for us? We don't take them after we die. We don't really like they're only really for show. Like, for example, like a cologne, a knockoff cologne is like $10, but the actual cologne is $200, but they smell exactly the same. So it's just like it's the value we put on things as a society. So, but I like that you thought about that when I was speaking about that. But yes, I definitely agree. In those moments when you don't want anything, that's when life is most peaceful. Because then anything you get, you appreciate it because it's like, oh, this is just a cherry on top. I'm already happy where I'm at. I don't really need anything else. And you just gave me $100. Thank you. Like, you know what I mean? But people are so greedy. Like, that's like, now I'm just going on a tangent. But did you want to say anything else before I guess that tangent?
No, no, it's true because this kind of reminds me of the question that I asked before. I asked in the beginning. I said, why are people so unhappy, or why is life so hard? And what I was thinking in my head when I asked that question, one answer that I was thinking of is because we want so many things. Think about
Mm,
all the things we want. We want millions of dollars. We want a healthy and beautiful partner that's not a narcissist. We want kids. Some of us we want a house that's not too cold but not too warm. We want blankets. We want millions and millions. We want food 3 times a day or more.
yeah, or
We
more.
want so many things. And so one answer to that question, why is life so hard, is because we want so many things.
That's so true. I love that perspective.
Mhm.
That is so true. I actually don't think about that at all.
Mhm.
I wonder why that skipped over me. Yeah, it's because we want so many things, and it's so frustrating. It's how can you obtain everything? It's so hard to obtain every little thing you want, because then what if it doesn't go well? Let's say you get a TV and it comes broken.
Yeah.
You're like gonna be pissed. What if yeah, that's I like that perspective. What made you think of that? Like when did it like
Well, I've been thinking about this for years, like, so for example, monks, right? So monks' goal is to extinguish desire. And this is one reason why a lot of them, claim that that's the best way to live life, because their goal is to live as simple as possible and to extinguish desire, and to just, to just live the bare minimum. And it's so funny because, you know, we always hear people say, like, I don't want the bare minimum. The bare minimum doesn't cut it. I don't want the bare minimum. But it's the people who want the bare minimum that tend to be the happiest
yeah,
when you
that's
think
true.
about it, right? Like, if you want 50K a year, if 50K a year makes you really, really happy, you're going to be easy to please, won't you?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yes.
Do you listen to John Mayer at all?
No, I've heard like isn't he a singer?
Yeah, he's a
No.
singer, and he made this song a long time ago called Gravity. You should listen to. And one of the lines is, "It's wanting more that's going to send me to my knees." Like it basically implies that wanting more is what leads to suffering often.
Wow, that's a powerful line.
Mhm.
I definitely agree on that. John Mayer, I know John. I'm 27, by the way.
Yeah,
So
well,
I'm not,
he is,
no, I was
he
gonna say I'm
was
not young. So,
he was at his peak like 20 years ago. So you were like 7 when he was at his peak. And also back to the meditation thing, it's funny because 70 years ago the West used to laugh at meditation. Back then it was just woo woo, it was pseudoscience, and now the
mhm,
West isn't laughing. Now meditation is like now we know that there's science and there's statistics behind that. So that's really
mhm.
interesting to me as well to think about.
Yeah, I think that is very interesting, actually. I think meditation is, I like that people are being more open-minded. I feel like social media especially did make a change on that because since we're getting information now from all over the world. So now we see the benefits from in this country, that country. So I don't know when the change was, but I'm just going to go more towards the benefits of social media and stuff like that. But yeah, I like the fact that people are more open-minded about things like that because it's so key. And just being open-minded in general just makes life a lot easier because you can always pivot, you know.
Right.
Um, I know a couple of people that are so stubborn. I do not like egotistical people,
Mm.
like, uncontrolled
Yeah.
egotistical people and
Yep.
very stubborn people.
Yep.
And I guess it's uncontrollable in both
Yep.
sense. If
Yep.
you're stubborn, and obviously it's a controlled stubborn, it's
Yes.
like, all right, that will get you somewhere.
Yep.
But
Yep.
you're just ridiculously stubborn. It's like, dude, you're gonna go nowhere. You're never able to get new information and accept it. It's so frustrating having to deal with those people and trying to explain things. They're like, no, no, no. So yeah, but
Yeah.
go on.
One thing that frustrates me a lot, and I see it all the time, especially in politics, is people who, even when they're given new information, they still don't change their mind and they still cling on to their old beliefs and their worldview. You see it all the time in politics. You
Yep.
can give someone 100 reasons, 100 logical reasons why they're wrong, and they'll still cling on to that original belief. And that's a big pet peeve of mine.
Yeah. Same for me. And I try to wrap my mind around the way they think. And it's like, why is it that you're so strong-willed about that information when you're not dumb enough? I don't care. You're not dumb enough to not realize that the information you're getting is actually sound information, but they still hold strong to it. I think it's an ego thing too. It's like they don't want to be shown that they're wrong. But it's like I think people care too much about just frivolous things. Like about being, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'd rather learn and be right another
Right,
time.
right.
It's as simple as that.
And I'm gonna get a little bit like psychological for a second, but
Sure.
when we mention beliefs or when we contradict people or call them wrong, what happens is that, like you said, their ego kicks in and their adrenaline kicks in, and then what happens
Mm,
is they start thinking with their amygdala instead of their
mm,
prefrontal cortex. So the amygdala is like the emotional part of the brain, and the prefrontal cortex is the logical part of the brain. And when people are pumped and when people, when their adrenaline kicks in, they think with their amygdala instead of their prefrontal cortex. And so a lot of it is like, scientific, but
yeah,
I am maybe tooting my horn a little bit, but I am proud to know that, I am someone who can receive information and change my mind. And you come
yeah,
across as that type of person. Am I wrong?
yeah. I tried. Yeah, but I appreciate it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so Dan, do you have like maybe like 7, 8 more minutes?
Yeah, I have some more time. Yeah.
So, you to me you come across as a pretty confident person. Would you agree with that?
Um, I appreciate that. Yes, I try to be as confident as I can about myself. Yeah, I feel good about myself. Yes.
And do
I've
you
never got asked that question before, so that I didn't even know how to answer, but go on.
do you have any insecurities that you feel comfortable talking about or not so much? And you don't have to if you don't want to.
I think I would like to. I definitely trust you. You seem like a very trustworthy person.
Mhm.
And regardless, I think being vulnerable is nice, right? I think most people should be more vulnerable then it will be better. You will have better unison with more people and et cetera. Insecurities, I can't think of any insecurities that scream to me on a daily basis. Maybe because at this point I've been working very hard to scrape away all the insecurities in my life. So as of now, I don't have a lot. But what I would say is like maybe my self-talk isn't the best. And it's because some days I feel inadequate. Some days it's like the branch is like I probably should have been here by now. I should think I today I wasn't so accurate with my time. So like when I'm just trying to think of that's the closest thing I could think of that I have, tough self-talk with myself because some days I feel not good enough. You know what I mean? Like because of my life doesn't represent the exact life in which I desire yet. So some days in my mind I tell myself it's because you weren't good enough to acquire it. But I think that stems back to trauma that I had growing up about having to deal with certain parental personalities that made me feel lesser than what I was, feel that I was always half-assing everything and lazy and etc. So I always try to work hard, maybe to go against that belief they had on me, but still it seeps in my mind saying, "You're not good enough. You didn't do enough." Da, da, da. So that's the closest thing I can get to an answer to that question, if that it was even relatable.
And how do we get rid of that voice? How do we get rid of that you're not good enough? How do we get rid of that?
I think a lot of it, having good people around you, having good people around
Great
you, and
answer.
people. Thanks. I think it's just. I think people. I want to talk about this a little bit. Networking, right? People say, "Oh, the right people will come to you." I do agree, like to a certain extent, that you attract things for sure. But when it has to do with like your network and your friends or whatever, I think it's important that we also seek them out. I think that's very important and might be scary. And sometimes I get nervous about it too. But having to seek people out. But going back to what I was saying about having good people around you is, good people around you that are observant of you, that are aware of you, of like you're doing a good job. I'm saying like, you're doing a good job, Dan. Like I see what you do on a daily basis. Like you're a good man, like this and that, like, patting your back, proud of you. That like just little innuendos, little things like that I think will really push that mindset to the side. Because when you're just alone, and I've been alone a lot of my life, like just alone and alone, and people not observant of me. And it's like not that they need to be, but it's something that I would like or something that I like. Hence the reason why I have certain people in my life now. But because I think it's very important because we're so easy to talk crap about ourselves because we're our hardest critic. So we need people to kind of buffer that. It's like, no, no, you're doing good. Like relax, you're doing good. Oh, all right, thanks. So yeah, I think that's what would be my solution to people if to try to wash that little voice away is
Mhm.
having good people around you. And the thing is, not good people hyping you up. If you're a shit person, they should not be hyping you up. But it's like hype you up for your wins. And if you have some, and if obviously if you're there's certain aspects of you that are probably not so pretty, they're more than open to tell you that like, I think maybe you should work on this. But going back to the part which you're hard on yourself, but you're actually excelling in, it's good to have people to tell you you're doing a damn good job. So that would be my solution.
Yeah, so I think a huge part of the solution is acknowledgement, understanding that you are insecure and understanding, the first step is acknowledging, right? Understanding that you are insecure, which you acknowledge, you've acknowledged that probably a long time ago. And then another important part is knowing the root, which you do. You mentioned a parent, and there was a parent who sounds condescending that talked down
Mhm.
to you. And I think that knowing the root is a huge part of the solution. I don't know if you want to talk about that parent or if you feel comfortable talking about that or not so much.
I don't mind, but what is it? I guess what is it like you're looking for from
Well,
my?
what was it? Was it mom or dad or both?
It was a stepdad.
Okay, and did you feel comfortable talking about this?
Yeah, we could. Yeah, go ahead.
What type of things would he say?
So the thing is, it was it was like anything I did was a problem.
Mm,
Everything I did actually was a problem. And it was like if anything broke in the house, if anything was messed up, it was his fault. If They were having relationship problems. It was his fault. It was, and then whenever I did anything, oh, you're half-assing it. You're half-assing it. Like it was just never good enough. So it's like part of me was always, I never really had a stable father figure in my life. I always said to people like, who's your idol? Who's your idol? I'm like, my idol is me in 20 years. Like that was, it was always the best version of me is who I want to be, is who I look up to because I know it's the opposite from all the people that disappointed me. But going back to that situation, so yeah, so it was always like since he was the closest male to me, it was always me seeking his approval. So it's like I do this, it just wasn't good enough. Nothing was good enough, and he made sure that I knew. So yeah, so that was that relationship.
Why do you think he was like that?
I think he had his own insecurities
Yes.
about himself,
Hmm.
and it's like I don't hate him. Like there was some pretty like interesting situations that the only reason I don't mention it is because I don't want this to get back to him and shout him out because like I don't hate him and I don't want him to be looked bad from anyone else because I understand I put myself in his shoes. I try my best to. I try to see that he had his own insecurities. And for some reason, I out I outshine or I shed light to those insecurities. One thing was that like the love my mother gave me
Hmm.
made him a little insecure about the love that
Jealous.
she gave him. Yeah, and it was, and also like I have a sister that's also his daughter, and she adores me. Like, so then that was another thing that made him extra like angry. It's like, why is he's not good enough? Why is he getting everything? So, and so so I think it was insecure. The biggest thing was insecurity. What was he specifically insecure about? I was gonna say obviously I wouldn't be able to put it together. Maybe I thought of certain things, but I'm not in his body. I'm not in his mind. I don't know what it was. But then, I had to understand that it wasn't me. And that's what I'm saying. Like some days I fight with it, I really do. And I try to get away from those whispers because they're strong, especially because it makes you think back about when you were a kid and you were in those situations and it was just tough because it was not just him coming to me, he will also go towards my mother. So it was like, it was tough on all ends. And that's why people usually, I had to mature quickly at a young age, and had to handle a lot of things quickly and be able to understand things a lot quicker. And most people couldn't see that around me and understood that. So there were a lot of people like, "Oh, you're mature for your age." I'm like, "Oh, I appreciate it," but no one ever knows what's happening behind closed doors with everybody. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what was happening behind his closed door in his bedroom, like in his mind. I don't know what insecurities he had from his parents, probably that did to him, and he just built it over to me. So yeah, I think that answered your question
Why don't you hate him?
because I've seen the good parts of him,
Hmm.
and when I look at his insecurities, it feels more like I know it's him. So it's like I'm not trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. I guess technically I am, but it's more that I know we're not perfect as humans, and I understand that we all go through our own trauma and stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure he in his heart, or I'm trying to put it that way, that he wouldn't wanted this the outcome that is now for it to be. Like he wouldn't. It's just well, I guess he did. I pity him
Hmm.
basically. Like it's just I pity that he had to even be like that. That his emotions were astray like that. That he couldn't control things, and now they're not together. My I call him my stepdad for simplicity. He's not my actual stepdad, but he's just the father of my sister. But it's so hard to do all that. But I just really just pity him. It's more that I guess I just try to, I don't know. I think that was just pretty much it. You make me actually think about why I don't hate him. I just think I did hate him a lot though. I think I just got to a point that it was just wasting my energy.
Yeah, which is what I was gonna say. You probably don't hate him because you have the wisdom to understand that resentment is a killer. and resentment eats you up and it keeps you up at night. And the irony of it all is I would actually say that you have the right to hate him. Like he traumatized you, he traumatized the family. And I'm not trying to like increase your hate because I don't know if that's very healthy. But I
No,
think that what's so funny?
no. It just you're nice. Like you're not doing that though. I just find it funny. Like you're good.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking like, like you have the right to hate him, but at the same time, I think that it sounds like you've reached a point of forgiveness to a certain
Yeah,
extent.
I definitely would agree on that. I definitely tried my best to just forgive the whole situation. I thought my headphone was dying because it just like I just want the best. I really do want the best for people. And it really has always been in my heart to want the best for people. And especially that he's the father of my sister. Like if we have a bad relationship, it's gonna bleed into her. In which he's still not a fan of me and he makes sure to express that to my sister
Still today,
till today. And but it's like I don't have any ill will towards him. And every time I'm around him, I try to make sure that it's visual that I don't like, what's going on, this and that, da da da. But yeah, so I just want to just forgive and just let it go. It's the past, it's over. We don't live together. We're not best friends. We don't need to be. I wouldn't even mind to be like just to be on good terms like that because it would just make it better for everybody. But to your point, yeah, I have to look within a lot, and look it over again and again and again, and to just be a better person about it or a bigger person.
is there a small part of you that still wants his approval?
Yes,
That's interesting. And why do you think that is?
I think because when he first came into my life, it got to a point where I told him, I was like, I'm gonna start calling you dad,
Mhm.
and I remember that being like a really important moment for both him and I. I remember him telling my mom, like, oh my God, like Dan said that he was gonna call me dad. Like that means so much to me. And it
Mhm.
meant so much to me too. Like, wow, like my father was like he wasn't really there that much. And he's very selfish, egotistical man. So, but he came into my life, he was really cool and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what? There's gonna be a change. I like him. I like the way he thought and everything like that. So part of that is always there. Like that little kid in me that like saw him as a dad at one point and wanted to make him proud as a son to him, but then it just went astray. Um, so yeah, that was I thought about it, but yeah. And it's like I'm not a fan that I have that on me, but I sometimes there were times I used to get mad, like why do you still want his approval? Like, what are you, a little, little whatever. So I'm like, nah, it's reasonable that you have that and it's fair.
Mhm.
Don't be so mad at yourself about it.
Don't judge yourself for it. And like it's so much better to understand that you still want his approval than to deny and to suppress and deny how you feel. Because the way I look at it is you're a very, very introspective man. You know what you want, you know how you feel, and it's so much healthier to know what you want and feel rather than to deny how you want,
Mm,
how you feel. Because, you know, what I'm sensing is a person who knows how to put their ego to the side because an egotistical person, no, I don't want this. I don't care about him. I don't care. Like an egotistical person will deny. They have a habit of denying what they want and what they need.
mm,
Whereas you are more self-aware and you acknowledge like, yeah, there's a part of me that still wants his approval, isn't
yeah,
there?
yeah. Yeah, it definitely took some time for me to get to this place of just like letting things be for what they are, and again to not judge myself so incredibly. And like so, I wouldn't have this conversation with most people because they wouldn't. Why do you still seek his approval? Like, why do
Exactly.
you like?
Yeah.
He did so wrong to you. Why
Judging.
would you still?
Judging.
Yeah, judging. I dislike judgeful people. To our conversation this whole time is to each their own. You know what I mean? Like you lived your life, I lived my life, they lived their life. I want the best for people. Da 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 da. Like, why am I judging them? I always say this too. The way people judge other people is the way they judge themselves.
Mm.
And I obviously there's gray area there, I think, but still, like, I really do think that's the case. But going back to, yeah, so it took some time to get here for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, because it sound, you grew up with him, like you met him when you were how old?
Um, 12.
Yeah, so
And I,
you
yeah,
and you it sounds to me like there was a part of you that maybe looked at him as a role model.
I did. He's a very smart guy, very funny guy. And just he's very capable in many aspects, but it's just like his handle on his emotions and his secure insecurities was no, he had nothing. He had no control over it. Excuse me. So I did I looked up to him to a certain point. Yeah. I was just very happy he came into my life to fill the role of a father because to this day, when I think of younger people, I think it's very important for it to have both a
Yeah,
loving mother and a strong father. I
yeah.
always think is very important. And I realized for me, when I was older, I realized how important it was for me to have someone like that in my life. I didn't realize how much I was seeking it, like internally. So when he came in, I was like, oh, yes, like someone that's going to be like a nice, strong figure in the family and et cetera, et cetera. But it didn't go that way, obviously. But yeah, definitely. I wouldn't see him. I didn't put him as an idol, actually, but he was something that I looked up to.
Well, it sounds to me like before he came along, there was a void. There was a part of you that wanted a male figure. Everybody wants a father figure, whether
Yeah,
you're 12, whether you're 42, everybody wants two loving
yeah,
parents. And I mention this,
yes,
I talk about this all the time, but no matter how old we get, everybody wants two loving parents. Even my parents are in their 60s, they still want two loving parents. Everybody wants that. And when we don't get that, there's a void in us, isn't there?
yeah. There is, and luckily, like I have a very loving mother. Close. I have a very close relationship with my mother, very close, and it's honestly beautiful. A lot of people really comment on it when they see us together. But yes, we bicker. Yes, we fight here and there. We both have very strong personalities. That's why I'm definitely my mother's son. But she is definitely a blessing in my life, and a lot of the things I do and it's to look after her for sure. So yeah, so I got blessed in that aspect. But to your point, yeah, I agree that still to this day, I would love a father figure. Talk to my father more now than I've had years in the past. Um, but the relationship just isn't there. Um, and it's definitely part because of me for the fact that he's still in the same position. And I feel like this is a little harsh for me, the way I look at it, but I do look at the world a little more on the harsh side than the average person. But he's still in the same position that he's been for a while. And every time I hang out with him, is he doesn't really bring more to the relationship. He always won. Most of the conversations are about him. He usually never even asks about how I'm doing.
Mm.
I brought my best friend to meet him because my best friend been meeting to meet him for years. He didn't ask a single question about any of us. He was just talking about him and his life with women, his life there, and yada, yada, yada. I was there for 2 hours, not a single question. So
Why do you think that
interesting.
is? Why do you think it is he didn't ask us a question about you guys?
I feel that he's always trying to, for that situation, is he was talking a lot about women in that situation, about him and his love life. And I feel he was mentioning that because that's the only thing that he is successful in that he could gloat about so he could look like a cool dad in front of me. That was my perspective on that. And then when it has to do with me, like in terms of like, so that was the part of why he was talking about himself, but then why he didn't ask any questions. Actually, that one I can't understand
Well,
how
that's
he's that self-absorbed.
yeah. I mean, why would a person not ask any questions about someone else? Because we could write it off and say maybe because he didn't care, but maybe it goes deeper than I have a feeling it goes deeper than that.
I
Like
think so too.
maybe he maybe he was seeking approval. Maybe he was seeking validation. Like maybe he was aiming for like wow, like what like he was saying things to impress you guys, right? So
Hmm.
I think a lot of it has to do with, like you said, insecurity. And I think he was seeking approval because when you ask someone how was your day, there's no validation or there's no impressing someone by asking how your day was. So
Yeah,
I think he was fishing for compliments and fishing for approval. That's what I think.
I definitely, yeah, I definitely agree that would be the case. That's the conclusion that I came up with, because my friend was like, "That's interesting. I didn't expect that to be that whole situation to be the situation. I warned him prior, but that it might go that way." But yeah, I feel in part too, he doesn't ask about how I'm doing because maybe, and there's a lot more information to this. I would have to explain a lot more, but I'm just going to quickly say, going back to the insecurity thing, I think he looks at, like, there's times we take a photo together and he looks at the photo of me, then himself, and he tries to take another one. I think maybe like he's maybe insecure with the way I look and like in terms of he's just and he wants to be the show. He wants to be the main attraction at all times. That's him. He's the walking show. Listen, I still love him, like, but he's like the walking show, and I find it hysterical. But in terms of like going like to what I'm saying, I talk to him more now than ever, but holding a relationship with him is hard because of those reasons. There's no purpose of me being here. Once when we ever talk about me, I start to talk, he starts talking.
Mm.
Like he starts to talk over and it starts blabbering, and then I'm like, there's no point in me explaining anything if you're just gonna keep talking. So yeah, it's interesting. Again, those two, I look at those two males that have been in my life, and it's like I appreciate them because I see what I don't want to be. I saw their faults and I see how I could go around it. And but it also shows me like, no man is perfect and I'm not going to be the perfect father. And that's okay. But I guess, but the fact that I'm still willing to work towards it, I think is important.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you pretty much figured him out, and I'm really, really proud and happy that you figured out that it's not about you, why he acts like that. Like it's really, really important
Thanks.
there's a big difference between like he acts like that because I'm a piece of shit and he acts like that because he's a piece of shit, or
Yeah.
he feels that he is. And like it's really, really important to understand that it's not you. It's not you. It's not you that's the problem. And I'm really proud of you for figuring that out. I have
Thanks.
a friend who was a social worker, and she told me years ago, I'll never forget. She told me that when people seek attention, it's generally to fill an insecurity. And he
Mm.
sounds like a very, very attention-seeking man. And like you figured it out. Like you said, he's to me, even though I never met the guy, he sounds like he has a very large ego, very insecure, constantly seeking validation, very selfish. I would go as far as to say a narcissist, I would say.
Oh, yes. My mom likes to call him a narcissist. He's the biggest narcissist ever. That's your dad. I'm like, you're right.
And
Definitely. And
I'm
yeah.
willing to bet that his father wasn't so nice.
I think this is where the problem lies, is that his father passed away when he was 13.
Mm,
And then there's a lot of backstory about his own life that like it put the pieces together in my mind. That's what I always do. I'm like Sherlock Holmes,
mhm.
getting information from this person, that person. I like to like,
Puzzle.
put the puzzles together. Uh, and it's like I heard my grandfather was a hardworking man. I heard my grandfather was a lot like me. It was just, which was interesting. I would love to meet him. But yeah, he died when my father was 13. So I feel like that took a toll and he didn't really get the full perspective of what a man is because his dad, being 13, you don't know, you're not a man yet for you to understand what it actually be a man. So
Mm.
I feel like, and then a lot of other things came to play. And yeah, I try to understand him as much as I can. And like, you do you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I'm sure that when you were younger, you were putting all the blame on yourself. You were saying, "Oh, I'm a piece of shit. It's my fault." Does that sound right that you were putting the blame on yourself?
When it has to do with my father,
Yeah, when like when your father would say condescending things, did you
this
back then?
stepfather.
Yeah,
Sorry, I know.
yeah.
Okay, continue.
So wait, when you said your father, were you referring to your stepfather or your father?
My blood father.
Oh, so you so
So yeah.
what I was saying that your stepfather probably had a father that wasn't the nicest guy.
Oh, because another stepfather. Okay,
Right.
so yeah, supposedly that I met his parents, and obviously, well, with older, I met them when they were older. Unfortunately, they passed away. They were great people when they were
Mm,
older. I don't know how they were when they were younger,
mm,
and they were pretty sweet. He was saying that his dad was harsh on him
there you
in
go.
certain, but in certain aspects, I yes, I agree. Yeah, there you go. I definitely agree. But then there's other stories that it seems like he was just a reasonable dad, like a reasonably like strict father, not even an unreasonably strict father. Um, but still, now he still mentioned that his dad was pretty hard on him. So I was like, I was like, you know what, it had to be because of that and all that. It's like I don't blame the guy, like I just it sucks that it had to be put on me. You know what I mean? And hence, with if someone's screaming at you in traffic, it's like they're obviously going through something, but just put that energy over there and not over here. Uh, but yeah,
No, I mean, it sounds to me like you're really, really good at not taking things personally. And this is something that I really admire because, like, if someone was screaming at me at traffic, or if I had an asshole narcissistic stepfather, I would have resentment and I would put the blame on them. And, I really admire, like, the fact that you're good at just going, okay, it's not me. I understand. And just you're good at not taking things personally. And that's a very, very admirable quality to me.
thank you, thank you. There are times that I do fail at it though, for sure. Like someone would say something like, I get too offended or I take it too personally. Um, there are times that I like to use words that people say to me as fuel. So sometimes I like to hold on to it for a little bit. But I still realize that it's just words. But I just like to, because growing up, it was like, it was so funny. So I was dealing with that situation, and then it's like, I'm sure everyone got bullied, but it was like, there was just a lot of going on. It was a lot going on. So I used a lot of things as fuel to keep going, just to keep me going. Like me, I wanted to be better than this situation to keep me going. It's because of the words that I heard that I got to be better than this
Yep.
situation.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I try my best. I'm gonna just say that I try my best not to take anything personally because I like to be more candid with people,
Mm.
but people take it so personally and it bothers me so much because I hate going being around the bush, beating around the bush.
Yep.
I really don't like it. I understand there's certain things probably shouldn't just say you're fat, go to the gym. Like that doesn't come across well. Like, obviously just soften the blow. But to really beat around the bush is not a thing that I like. And it's just unfortunate most people just take things personally that I can't be that way. So I try not to take it that way so that I'm able to, give it. You know what I mean?
Dan, I also wonder, how do you feel when I say I'm proud of you? Does that make you feel happy? Does that make you feel awkward? I know kind of a weird question, but how do you feel when you hear those words?
One, it's a fair question. Two, I love that you brought it up because I was thinking on how you were thinking on when you were saying that to me because
You think
yeah,
a lot,
it
huh?
a little too much sometimes. Uh, it's like because when I say to my friend or people close to me that I'm proud of them, I'm like, I hope they don't take it as a condescending way or like a way that I think I'm better than them. It's more of the fact that I'm just so delighted to hear that information, and it's so incredible that you did it. Like I'm just proud that you're a human capable of achieving that.
Hmm.
So I take that from you, to you to one, I find you very intelligent and insightful. So for you to say you're proud of me, I'm like, I must be, it's good to me. But it's just a heartwarming gesture. I just simply think it's a heartwarming gesture. And I think more people should be okay with using that word anyways, because to my point of, you're a human that achieved something that like I'm proud to listen to. So I'm proud of you. So that's how I take it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you accept it. Because some people like feel awkward, or some people don't really believe it, and it is and especially with men, like men barely say to each other, "I'm proud
Yeah.
of you." Especially back in the day, like teenagers, like they never. Well, I don't remember. I think the first time one of my male friends said they were proud of me was maybe when I was 25. And like men don't say it to each other enough at all, and it's really really terrible. And just to wrap things up, Dan, I am proud of you because it feels like you've
Thanks.
come a long way, and you're just so good at not taking things personally, and you seem very self-aware, and you seem very psychologically aware to me. So I am proud of you for all of these things, man.
Yeah, that generally does mean a lot to me, man. I really do appreciate it. And I appreciate this conversation. I
Yeah,
really do.
man.
I had a great time. And it's not often you get a or not often I get to have a conversation like this. So it meant a lot to me. So thank you so much.
We'll definitely have a part two, maybe in a few months.
I would, yeah, I'd be totally down for that, man. Just let me know.
Have a good one, man. Take care.
You too. You take care.